Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining me today for this Saturn in Pisces little webinar. I'm going to try to finish within about 1.5 to 2 hours. I'm not going to keep you around too long, but I wanted to speak about Saturn in Pisces first to prepare you for 2022 for a couple of reasons, actually. One of them is because whenever Saturn goes through a house, it always wants you to prepare for the next house as well at the same time. So to give you an example on that, for instance, Saturn has been going through my 12th house since 2020 December, and then I started preparing myself, when it comes to body transformation. Because if we don't do a little bit of a preparation with Saturn, then when it hits that particular house where it's going to walk in, then it can actually create you problems. So with Saturn, because this is about goals, this is somehow a representation of long-term goals, right? So the long-term is not just focusing on the now. That doesn't work with Saturn. We're going to have to focus on the future as well at the same time. So, and of course, this is going to be a big shift. This is a little bit of a longer Saturnian cycle, actually, than 2.5 years. And let me tell you why. Saturn is walking into the sign of Pisces, and yes, it will be there. However, it's going to be making a conjunction to the Neptune-Jupiter conjunction point as well at one point. But what's more important is that Saturn will be having a conjunction to Neptune on 0 degree of Aries in 2026. So I would say that this Saturnian cycle is at least a good 5.5, 6 years long, rather than just focusing on a 2.5 year period. Because when it's going to meet Neptune, they are going to be in the same sign for 2.5 years again. So therefore, Saturn will have plenty of Neptunian flavor in the next 5, 6 years. But before we actually jump into Saturn in Pisces, I just wanted to tell you that this video is for those who wish to learn astrology. So I will walk you through. We're going to talk about Pisces. We're going to talk about Saturn. We're going to come up with predictions as well in the middle of the video. And right at the end, we will be making actually a little bit of a prediction for each signs. I'm going to be rather asking questions to kind of prompt you to think about what's going to happen to you, because obviously I don't know your personal chart, and today we are not going to have time to discuss your personal chart. But yeah, so basically that's the aim of this little webinar. So if you do like it, please press like and share the video with others as well. That would be much appreciated. And also subscribe to the channel if you want to be finding quality content. Another announcement I wanted to make is that I will be actually making an ultimate course on money, all you need to know about money and financial astrology. Now, I've done something similar, but I'm not going to talk about crypto and stuff like that. It's going to be more personal. So we're going to be looking at in what ways you can make money. I'm going to be starting that course in the middle of November, I think on the 12th of November. It's going to be 12 weeks. We're going to be looking at the millionaires midpoints. We're going to look at asteroids. We're going to look at second house, 8th house, 5th house, 11th house. All you need to know about money, personal money and abundance perspective. So if you are interested, sign up for that course. Now, let's get started with Saturn in Pisces. So I'm going to be sharing the screen because I prepared a presentation for you. If you do have got any questions, please type them into the chat box, or even better, if you type them into the Q&A box, because I'm guessing you guys are going to be chatting to each other on the in the chat box, and I might be missing some of the questions there. So Saturn, now what I'm going to be describing to you today is going to be a little bit similar to the feeling of Saturn in the 12th house, but it's not going to be entirely the same experience though. So I would like to point that out. You might find some traits. Oh, yes, I've got Saturn going through my 12th house, and this is exactly how I feel. And that's exactly obviously possible. However, the experience is not always going to be exactly the same. So we should remember when it comes to a sign, it always shows how a planet is going to be acting out on its own energy. So therefore, we're going to be looking at what Pisces indicates, and we're going to be looking at what Saturn indicates as well, both on a mundane and a personal level too. Now, Saturn will be moving into the sign of Pisces on 7th of March, 2023. And then it's going to be there for a while when it's going to go back. It's going to go into the sign of Aries, and then it's going to come out, and then going back to the sign of Pisces. And then in 2026, it's going to be entirely making a conjunction to Neptune in the sign of Pisces. Now, I would say that 2021 was the year of Saturn. And what is Saturn? Saturn talks about teaching and testing us quite a lot. But also, not many people know, but Saturn does talk about the inner world as well, because it does have a planetary joy in the 12th house. And the 12th house is something to do with our subconscious. So Saturn does talk about inner world. And it also, I think 2021 was the year of summarizing things. Obviously, the whole year was kind of dominated by the Saturn-Uranus square, which is still coming up, unfortunately. We're going to have one more, even though it's not going to be exact, but they are only going to be about 25 minutes apart from each other. Now, obviously, we also had 2021 Jupiter going into the sign of Pisces in the middle of the year, and it made a conjunction to Neptune, which happened on 24 degree. And that's very, very important, actually, to remember what we describe with Jupiter and Neptune conjunction. Because Jupiter and Neptune is really much about dreaming. Saturn is going to come around, it's going to trigger that point, and it will want you to actually crystallize your dreams, to give a shape and form to it. You should remember Saturn, yes, it does rule Capricorn. From a traditional perspective, it does rule Aquarius as well. But the L-mutine, or it's the L-mutine of Libra sign as well. So therefore, Saturn wants to give shape and form to things. Now, the fact that Jupiter and Neptune met on 24 degree of Pisces, you should always remember that Saturn is about materializing things. In order to achieve Jupiter analogy in our chart, we always need a good Saturn for it. That's why the Saturn-Jupiter cycles always talk about business opportunities. Of course, it really depends on us whether we're going to be playing the cards in a good way or in a bad way, of course. So let's just explore what Pisces is a little bit. Firstly, Pisces represents the ocean. So if you're really kind of trying to look into to see what is going on at the bottom of the ocean, well, that's not going to happen, right? Because it's so deep. So Pisces is about depth. It's a water sign, and the water is very much about emotions. So one of the keywords for Pisces is the emotional depth. They are kind of like psychic sponge. They walk in the street, they look at people, and then they feel them. They have got an idea of what is going on in their minds. Obviously, the fact that Pisces, the bottom of the ocean, cannot be seen, so therefore Pisces represents anything which is unseen around us. So imagine that Saturn moving into the sign of, just give me a second, please. Sorry about that, but it's too hot. I needed to switch on the aircon. So obviously the fact that Pisces is about unseen forces, Saturn will kind of trying to give shape to those unseen forces. Also, Pisces is a water sign, as I said, so it's about fluidity. And just like the ocean and the waves, you know, the emotions are changing quite often. So, but also when you look into the ocean, you're going to see your own reflection. So Pisces somehow represents reflection as well at the same time. Now, Pisces is said to be one of the most spiritual signs. And absolutely, it is. So surely spirituality, or we can even call Pisces as the sign of religion alongside with Sagittarius, religion will be a huge topic, but I'm going to explain those two. I mean, those two for you. Now, when it comes to intellect, because I would say that Pisces is very intellectual, it is most likely an emotional intelligence, kind of like the ability to place yourself in other people's shoes. But at the same time, the intellectuality is coming from the fact that Pisces is the natural ruler of the 12th house, where we give birth to ideas. So Pisces is intellectual sign. Pisces always wants to go deep. Actually, it likes studying as well. But most likely they like studying because they never feel good enough. So they tend to be doubting themselves. So therefore, Pisces is going to talk to us about self-doubt also. Now, just like any type of water sign, they tend to be quite indecisive as well. So when there is an opportunity, they are dreaming about opportunity, but when it comes to actually grabbing it, they might back out because, ooh, what's going to happen? And, they are afraid of any type of forces, spiritual energies, and then they might withdraw themselves. And this withdrawal syndrome is also something to do with Pisces. So when it comes to its knowledge, Pisces tends to feel that, the more I know, the more we realize that my knowledge is not good enough. So there is this tendency to become an eternal student with that. Now, one of the big problem maybe Pisces actually can try to do is that they are trying to measure everything by facts and data. Now, the detrimental position of the planet in the sign of Pisces would be Mercury. So therefore, how to imagine is that each of the dignities of a sign somehow kind of gives a little bit of a nuance meaning to the sign. So we spoke about the exaltation ruler, or L-mutine, we can call it, which, as I said, Saturn was the L-mutine or the exaltation ruler of Libra. When it comes to Pisces, it's going to be about Venus, but the detrimental planet would be Mercury. So one thing Pisces always wants to do is that it wants to measure things by data, and it's never going to work out. Okay, that's why a planet is detrimental, because it causes issues. So the biggest learning of Pisces is to not to want to know all the facts and data, just accepting the fact that, you know what, I understand it spiritually. Somewhere this knowledge is coming from, but I don't need to know everything all the time. Obviously, because Pisces represents confusion, if the more I look at the data, the more confused I become with that. And obviously, that could be a little bit of an issue also. Now, Pisces represents lack of confidence. It's kind of true for all the water signs, but I would say this is the most true for the Piscean element, because it's a mutable energy. So sometimes we are extremely confident with it, and sometimes we completely lose that confidence. Now, as I mentioned a couple of times, Pisces is a water sign. Water signs actually represent muted energies. So they can be quite quiet or cautious, not the most ambitious type of signs. It's about servicing others. It's about trying to help others. And sometimes they do that at their own expenses as well. So some of the lower manifestation of Pisces, just let's think about the symbol of the Pisces, which is talking about two fishes facing opposite directions. So it talks about duality. Now, this duality really talks about an inner struggle within us. As I said, such as, for instance, the lack of confidence and sometimes being overly confident. So Pisces always have got an issue of that kind of like trying to find the middle road. Or just think about the ocean, you are trying to surf on it. Well, there is a big wave coming and then you are not holding your, kind of like your ground, then you're just gonna go with the flow. So they tend to be going with the flow. They can be easily persuaded. Just imagine, like, again, the detrimental sign of Pisces is Mercury. I show you a data, you believe it, you're going to trust them. And then in the end, you're going to get kind of like frustrated by it, or not just frustrated, but in a sense, disappointed because you allowed yourself to be misled. And unfortunately, this is something Pisces experience quite often, being misled and then becoming disappointed. But it also comes from the fact that they have got extremely high expectations because they think that, you know what, I scratch your back, at one point you're going to scratch my back as well. But unfortunately, in real life, it's not always happening. Also, Pisces is really trying to hide their identity. So their true identity. And usually it comes from shame. So they might be ashamed of something, and that's why they are hiding it, or they might have been humiliated in a way, and they're not so proud of talking about it. Definitely one of the most emotional sides, but also Pisces can be quite selfish as well. But it's not always visible, okay? Because it's kind of like the image of an angel. But that's the reason why I usually describe Piscean energies as, you know what, when people want to sacrifice their life for others, it's not working for Pisces, even though they do that a lot. And the reason why it's not working is because, as I said, when you need something, you're not going to help from others. You're not going to get any help from others. But also they are so helpful so that they receive love. Now, this is where the exalted ruler of Pisces is coming into the picture, which is Venus. And what's Venus? Self-worth, love, money. Oh, Pisces love spending money. They love money as well. So when it comes to measurements, they do look at the money side of things also. Also, Pisces can be sometimes fake because they don't want to confront, they don't want to have any confrontation with others. Venus as the exalted ruler of Pisces, and they can come across shady sometimes. And it's not because they want to hurt someone, it's just because they don't want to be having argument with anyone. They can be overly trusting, and they can also easily be drawn into shady businesses as well. And most likely, I would say that they have got a tendency to have kind of like a negative way of thinking. So pessimism is definitely a low manifestation of Pisces. Now, when it comes to the highest manifestation of Pisces, they are extremely spiritual. As I said, they can feel the room when they walk into somewhere. It's about having a connection with the divine energy. They are extremely empathetic. So they are extremely good therapists, for instance, because they exactly know what to say when someone is heartbroken, for instance. They tend to be quite traditional as well. They are quite romantic. So they might expect, flower petals on the bed, or someone is singing me a serenade under my balcony, and all those type of things. That's also a Piscean energy. They have got extremely good imagination skills. I tend to call it as the kind of like the sign of law of attraction, because if they visualize, actually, they can manifest as well. They are very good at making other people feel special, and they are always wanting to have unity with someone. Again, that comes from the exalted ruler, Venus, kind of like having a cohesive energy, being one with others in a sense. So they are extremely giving and caring as well. So these are just a few kind of like bits and bobs, what you should know about Pisces. I can talk about it most likely for a few hours, actually, but I'm not going to do it today. Now, Pisces is ruled by two planets. Neptune would be the modern ruler, and Jupiter would be the traditional ruler. I tend to use Jupiter. However, I would not say that you shouldn't be looking at Neptune if you are more a modern person. But both of them, in a sense, is really, let's just think about the Neptune for a second. The exalted ruler of Pisces is Venus. Neptune is the higher octave of Venus. So from a learning point of view, this is really talking about personal growth. It's about ignoring the fact that I need to be only loving myself, but I can actually love others as well. Or instead of having confrontations with people, I can forgive them for their mistake because they are also human beings. So that's a big learning curve for Pisces. And of course, we have got the Neptunian energy, which is very much about the higher level of consciousness. It's about a mental yearning towards an ideal world. It's about both of these planets pretty much inspires towards the transcendent meaning of life. Now, Jupiter is more about kind of like the physical meaning of life. You know, why I'm existing, what am I meant to be doing in this incarnation, how I can become a better version of myself. And Neptune is more about the transcendent meaning. So looking at the karma, looking at, you know, how I can make my children's life better, how I can make, I don't know, XY's life better around me as well. As I said, Pisces is about dreams, visualization. So how are you going to be merging your dreams with a higher power? And that's Jupiter and Neptune. Jupiter represents the gods, right? So he was Zeus. Jupiter was the ruler of the sky and Neptune was the ruler of the ocean. So how to merge the two and kind of like becoming one again. And of course, both planets are very kind of like religious. Jupiter might be more on the religious side and Neptune is more a little bit on the spiritual side. One is more metaphysical, the other one is more philosophical. But both of them work. I mean, none of them works without each other. So that's why it's good to look at both of these planets at the same time. Now, lessons of Pisces, remembering that everything is bigger than all of us. So that's where the unity comes into the picture. Whatever happens in the world actually has got an impact on the individual as well. So we cannot show a non-care attitude. We cannot run away from any type of problems. This is a huge lesson of Pisces. It's about trusting the invisible energies, knowing that, you know what, we might not see that there are UFOs, but there might be. So I'm not going to be actually closing the door in front of the possibility of having them around. It's about making spiritual bonds with others, spiritual understanding of other people's behaviors and motives. So Pisces is one of the most psychological signs as well. Trusting that the universe has got my back. So Pisces needs to learn to become more optimistic about something. Lack of confidence, we spoke about that as a negativity. So Pisces needs to learn to have faith in something, faith in others, as well as faith in gods or religion or spirituality or whatever you want to put your faith into. But without faith, you kind of like a dead end. So what do you believe in? And most likely you need to be believing in yourself. And also not necessarily believing that I'm always the victim of universal laws. So because you are the creator of your own life. And that would be, by the way, Mars is the triplicity ruler of Pisces. So what is Mars? Mars is about, you know what, I take action. So that's a huge learning. I know I've been promising and I keep forgetting to put a material together about these rulers and what type of stages they rule in your life and how we can connect these to the signs. I keep forgetting it, but I promise I'm going to take a note of it. And one day I'm just going to write it down and make a presentation about it shortly. It's good to look at the mythology of Pisces a little bit, because that's going to help you to understand the meaning of Pisces more. So Pisces is represented by a fish, or actually two fishes, because it's a dual sign, double-bodied sign. But also sometimes they represent it with a shark. But anyway, the story behind this is that Aphrodite and her son Eros, who is called Cupid in the Roman mythology, they wanted to escape from a monster, a typhoon. And by the way, Gaia sent the monster because she wanted to stop the indulgence of the gods. And actually, Aphrodite, and which is, by the way, Venus, and her son Eros were tied together so that they are not going to be losing each other. And they trusted each other so much that they jumped into the ocean. Actually, they jumped into the unknown, but they had the faith in each other. So I hope this little story actually gives you a little bit of a way to think about what actually Pisces represents in our charts. So most likely when you are having a Pisces cusp in your chart, you might want to be looking at where the ruler is and imagine that you're going to have to trust those two houses the most, and you're going to have to merge them. Some of them are going to be easier and some of them are going to be harder. Okay. So to give you an example, let's say the second house is your Piscean energy. And then if you find the ruler, for instance, in the sixth house, they would be forming kind of like a trine. It might be easier to actually fuse the two energies. But if you have got, let's say, the second house ruler in the ninth, that might be a challenge because the two houses have nothing to do with each other. Okay, so this is what we call as the aversion. Aversion means that it's not visible. The two houses are not visible to each other. A little bit of a psychology, very shortly. Neptune or Pisces rules the psychological drama triangle. And basically it has got three pillars. We have got the persecutor, we've got the rescuer, and we've got the victim. Now, Pisces energy rules the catch-22. That kind of like rattle we can get stuck into. And then, like the mouse is running around, it never stops type of energy, and then eventually it dies. So that's what Pisces tends to be doing, by the way, quite a lot. Sometimes they're going to be the persecutor, sometimes they're going to be the rescuer, and sometimes they're going to be the victim. So I don't think I need to explain a lot about it, but imagine that the persecutor, who is going to be judging others, blaming others, kind of like, I've done everything for you, and then this is what you give me back, those type of self-pity sentences. Then we've got the rescuer. Even though we got screwed over, we still actually go and help others. We take care of them. We offer them our help as well. We kind of give a message to people. And sometimes moms do that. Pisces mom do that, oh, don't worry, honey, I'm going to chop up the tomato into little pieces for you because you cannot do that. What type of message do we give to the child? That, oh, you are not able to do anything on your own without me. So that's why Pisces actually can become quite narcissistic, by the way. But we are really talking about the polarities here, the lower manifestation. But by the way, narcissism actually is a Sun and Neptunian aspect. This can be, or this topic is quite a popular one nowadays. And I always see people asking, what rules, narcissism and so forth. And then I tell you now, it's a Sun and Neptunian aspect, mainly. And then we've got the victim type of energy when I want someone to save me. And then I keep complaining, oh, everyone just hurts me. I don't know when I'm helping so much, poor me, and all those type of things. Saturn will want you to realize these situations, especially if Pisces is on your one of your angle. You know, it might sound very harsh. I have a Pisces rising sign. I had to realize this bloody triangle in my life, and I know it is there. Even though I'm working on it very hard, but I had to look into the mirror and accept the fact that sometimes I'm blaming others. Sometimes I play the role of the victim. I haven't played that one for a while, actually. But I always play the rescuer, okay? Because the biggest problem is that Pisces cannot say no. Guess what? Saturn is going to come into the sign of Pisces, and it will want to teach you to say no. And then if you keep accepting kind of like responsibilities which does not serve your evolutionary process, then unfortunately, I think Saturn is going to kick some butts. So obviously, Saturn is a malefic planet. It tends to destroy unless you do the right things. But I'm going to come back onto Saturn shortly. So just a little bit of a summary of Pisces, what we've learned about Pisces. Empathy, compassion. It's very receptive. It represents the ocean, dreams, healing. It's very visionary, mystical. However, it tends to sometimes fall into the traps of illusions as well. It can be very deceptive or allows others to deceive them. And kind of like a slippery, slimy, muddy type of road you can imagine. So sometimes they get stuck, they fall down, and they might not want to get up. Oh, we're going to learn a lot more about Pisces. Even in the course I'm going to be holding for the beginners, sometimes at the end of the month, I think. It's still on discount till the 10th of October, I think. So you might want to check that out as well. This is just a very brief version of what I wanted to teach about Pisces today. Now, let's just talk about Saturn so that we can put the picture together. And I'm not going to give you so much of a keywords because I guess plenty of you know about Saturn, right? But I just want to kind of make you think about it a little bit through mythology also. Now, Saturn was the youngest of 7 Titans. He was actually a child of the god of the father sky, and the mother was Gaia, who was the mother of Earth. And now the father was absolutely disgusted by his own children. He had 7 children. He didn't like any of them. So basically what he did was he shoved his children back into Gaia. And Saturn managed to somehow escape from that. So then basically Gaia asked his son, Saturn, to castrate and kill his own father. And basically, he kind of did it. And what he did was that he took over the kingdom from his own father, and then he married his own sister, whose name was Rhea. And they had 4 children, Vesta, Ceres, Pluto, and Neptune. And he wasn't happy with his own children either. So he ate them. And then because they were not good looking or they didn't see the qualities he wanted to have. So basically, it was a copycat of his own father. And then he had a mistress, and they had another child, and that was called Jupiter. And, oh, sorry, there was no mistress. It was Rhea as well. So, but then Saturn wanted to kill Jupiter also. But Rhea tricked Saturn by wrapping up the child, hiding the child and wrapping up a stone instead of her child so that Saturn kind of can kill that stone. And obviously Jupiter grew up. Saturn had no clue about Jupiter being his son, and Jupiter became the cupbearer of Saturn. And Jupiter one day gave him a potion that made him throw up all his children And then they went into battle and Jupiter won, actually. Obviously, all the children actually supported Jupiter. So this is how Jupiter became the god of all gods, basically. And then Saturn got exiled, and he got exiled to Tartarus. So can you see the Piscean mythology in this, actually? Because Jupiter is the ruler of Pisces. So what it really talks about is, again, just think about Saturn in Pisces. Are you a copycat? Are you doing exactly the same karmic mistakes like Saturn and his father did? And are you going to be able to forgive Pisces, your own father? Obviously, it's going to be a very difficult story here with Jupiter and Saturn, but are you going to be able to forgive? Then Saturn later on suffered from his own past actions. He felt guilty about it, and then he wanted to make it right. That's why Saturn has got planetary joy in the 12th house, because it's about awakening for my past actions, what I did wrong, so that, and then I can forgive myself, but I can gain the forgiveness of others too, and not being afraid of my own shadow. Now, as I mentioned at the beginning, Saturn in the 12th house and Saturn in the sign of Pisces have got some similarities, but they are not exactly the same though. And that's important to remember. So that's what I kind of wanted to share about Saturn, so that you have got a little bit of extra knowledge about how to go about the meaning of Saturn. I'm going to give you additionals, but kind of like through the interpretation. So today we will be starting. Actually, before we go forward, does anyone have got any questions at all, or does that make sense? If you have got any question, feel free to pop up your hand, because I just don't want to be talking all the time. If you have got guys question, just pop up your hand. Very good, Johnny. Johnny is making a comment that is that why Saturn is exalted in the sign of Libra to fix relationships? Absolutely. So I love the fact that I love when students start thinking, and colorate things, because I think one of the biggest problem nowadays with astrological knowledge is that we don't know what's the developmental stage of these signs, for instance, or how to colorate these little things, just like what Johnny did now, to kind of bring the things together. Why is Saturn exalted in the bloody sign of Libra? Saturn has got nothing to do with a relationship, right? When you open up the internet or you open up books, no one really mentions that Saturn is about relationship, but he's here to fix relationships, to kind of create longevity. So very good point. Okay, so I don't think we've got questions because no one is raising their leg. So let's move forward. So what shall we expect on a mundane level? Well, I mean, Pisces. Well, one of the biggest topic Pisces talks about on a mundane level is something to do with inflation. Okay, Pisces rules inflations. Now, I wanted to give you a little bit of an idea about historical matters, because Neptune went into the sign of Pisces in 2022. And Neptune, by the way, also rules inflation. Okay. Now, historically speaking, water signs do not create high inflation. I know someone is going to tell me, like, oh, Victor, we've got high inflation now. Well, believe me, 2026 is going to be worse, because the highest inflations are happening when Neptune are moving into fire signs. The last time Neptune was in fire signs was in the sign of Sagittarius. And that was a very high inflation period. By the way, it was in the 1970s. Now, what's also quite interesting to mention here, by the way, that the British pound is actually dropping big time, as you might have heard, against the US dollar. And the weakest the British pound was in 1971. So obviously that was also something to do with Neptune moving into the sign of Sagittarius. Why are we talking about this? We are meant to be talking about Saturn in Pisces, right? Victor, are you crazy? No, I'm not crazy. The reason why we are talking about it, because even though Saturn and Neptune conjunction will be happening in Aries, okay, but they are going to be co-witnessed by each other. So I think what's going to happen is that the governments are going to try to fix their fix the inflation rates significantly. It doesn't mean it's going to succeed, though. I'm not saying that, but they're going to make extreme efforts about it. I think this is one of the positive manifestations. I think they can achieve certain bits and bobs. Why? I'm going to tell you why currently, actually, the inflation is a problem. Pisces has got 3 decans, and this is the inflation. It's something I've predicted back in 2019, 20, when Jupiter moved into the sign of Pisces, and I said when Jupiter and Neptune are going to be conjuncting, there is going to be inflation issues after. And I also said that the cryptocurrency was going to crash. Why did I say that? One of the reasons why I said that was because the Neptune-Jupiter conjunction happened on 24 degree, which is actually a Leo what? Fire sign. Okay? So therefore, it doesn't mean that Pisces, we've got Neptune, for instance, in the sign of, Pisces, so it's not going to be an inflation issues. Unfortunately, we also have got 3 fiery segments there, but those are shorter periods. Okay, I think the real problem is going to come in 26. Another big topic, actually, Neptune. Oh, and what I find interesting about Neptune, that when it moves into a sign, it always does something beautiful. That's why I call it as the rotten apple planet. So to give you an example, it went into the sign of Scorpio in 56, and then it left about 70. In 56, it's all started with Disney. Then in the end, it ended up with porn. Then in 70, it started with spiritual movements. Then it ended with a religious massacre. Or massacre, sorry, whatever we say it. Then in 84, they started something to do with regulating the banking systems and all those type of things. And then 98, we had all those and whatever, how is it called? The index. Anyway, crash and so forth, okay? Then 98, internet started spreading like there is no tomorrow. And then actually there was this internet protest blackout in 2012. So why am I talking about that? Because Saturn is moving into the sign of Pisces. It hasn't been there for almost 29 years, okay? And when he went to the sign of Pisces, you're going to have to start thinking about what was going on. And it was about Black Lives Matters. So unfortunately, I think that's going to be a negative manifestation of Saturn in the sign of Pisces. There is going to be something around discrimination towards minor groups. Do I think it's going to be Black people? Well, Saturn does rule Black people, but I don't think it's just that. I think it's going to be a massive discrimination type of things. What I really hope is that they're going to be, sorry, just they are ringing the doorbell because they are bringing my dinner. Let me just grab that. Sorry about that, but we have got set timings when we can eat and when we cannot. So, I'm still on diet. So anyway, I think discrimination is going to be a huge topic coming up in the next 2.5 years, unfortunately. Okay, so moving a little bit forward, Saturn. I just wanted to give a couple of other keywords about Saturn, because actually it does talk about shortages or lowering the prices of something. Typically, whenever Saturn moves into a sign, typically what it does is that we have got some type of shortages, whatever that sign rules. Okay? By the way, Saturn does rule fashion. So it's worth having a look at when Saturn was in the sign of Pisces, what was the fashion? Because most likely that's gonna come back. I haven't looked at it. So if you want, have a look, but I haven't looked at it. Okay. Now, shortages and or lower prices so we can buy it cheaper. So just think about what was going on while Saturn was in the sign of Capricorn. We started having construction issues, right? The material prices went up significantly. Typically, what become the lower price is always the opposites. Okay, so in this case, this would be Virgo. So let's just have a look at what it, oh, I messed up bits and bobs here. Okay, I'm going to organize these slides. Sorry about that. Yeah, I wanted to put these slides over there. So I'm just going to move it now. So I just put down some industries, what Saturn actually rules. Oil. Most likely there is going to be lack of oil, petrol. Pharmaceutical matters is ruled by Pisces. Lack of medicine. Unfortunately, most likely the prices of medicines will go up significantly. Am I still sharing the screen? Sorry about that. I don't think I'm sharing the screen. So pharmaceutical matters. So lack of tablets and all those type of things. And I think contraception is going to be one of the topics, actually, what comes up with Saturn in the sign of Pisces, just because Pisces is also ruled by, not only by Jupiter, but also Venus. And Venus is about fertility alongside with Jupiter. Those are the two most fertile planets. Also, Pisces rules cosmetics, alcohol. Most likely there is going to be more regulations around how much you can drink, for instance, in a pub, or how old you can be, or these type of things. Pisces rules shipping. So this could actually indicate that there is going to be not enough service actually to ship certain type of things. So therefore, maybe Amazon is going to be struggling. Just an idea. I think Saturn, because it represents workforce, I think there is going to be major shortages in the health industry. If you think they are short now, I think while Saturn is in the sign of Pisces, it's going to be even less. But also Pisces rules film industry. I'm not too sure what Saturn can kind of cause there, because I think they're going to be producing films, and we're going to talk about films anyway shortly. But it can also talk about fishing. So lack of fish, I think we're going to start running out of fish. Or, I mean, we're not going to run out of fish, but the prices of it is going to go up significantly, because they're going to say that it's actually running out, and then we are risking the life of fish and so forth. And Pisces is also something to do with advertisement. Typically YouTube, I might be expecting some major restrictions coming to YouTube. As I said, Pisces rules spirituality. Maybe they are going to be restricting spiritual videos. Maybe because they are not happy with us sharing some of the truth. Or maybe they're going to think that we're sharing fake things with people. It can work in both ways. But my biggest concern is because we're talking about a Virgo Pisces axis, which is very much about selfless service to others, but it's the health industry. I think the health industry is going to struggle quite a lot. And therefore, if they want to kind of survive, it might be possible that they're going to come up with a new virus, and that could be the downfall of it. But that's most likely a man-produced crap. I know I'm sounding negative, but you should understand that Saturn and Pisces are not easy combination, okay? The reason why, because they have got completely different approach. They are completely opposite to each other. One talks about responsibility, the other one is about avoiding. It's about accountability versus denial, reality versus illusions. Saturn wants to control, Pisces is passive. Saturn is critical, Pisces is about blind faith, right? And then plenty, you can see them on the slide. I'm not going to go through all of those, but actually Saturn is cold and dry. Pisces is wet and moist. So that's why it rules anything to do with liquids and alcohol and those type of things. Saturn questions, doubts things. Pisces trusts. Saturn says, no, we need to do it very precisely. Pisces, yeah, finished, it's all done. But accuracy is not always important for them. Saturn is about rules, okay? And Pisces thinks rules for everyone, which kind of match everyone's expectations and so forth. So they tend to be bending the rules. Saturn wants to say the truth, and Pisces distorts the truth. Saturn is about productivity and hard work. Pisces is about running away and resting and relaxing a little bit. Okay? Saturn wants to prove the point that I'm worthy. Pisces wants to be accepted the way they are. Okay? So therefore these, and a couple of other stuff here, Saturn is about earth and mountains. Pisces is about oceans, lakes, and islands, actually. So I can really expect, by the way, some volcano eruptions and islands, or I can be imagining that some of the islands are going to start sinking. And unfortunately, it can cause kind of like catastrophe. And Saturn does rule catastrophes, by the way. So we have got some issues here. Now, I've collected some keywords for you in regards to Saturn. Time, reality, it's about mastering something that you become the best at it. It's about boundaries. Well, Pisces doesn't know boundaries at all. So again, that's a little bit of a conflicted energy there. Saturn gives us limits. It wants to test our knowledge, but also test whether we have learned the lesson. It always makes things smaller. It constricts things. Saturn does talk about material security because at the end of the day, it's a kind of like a work planet, right? It does talk about security in a sense. Oh, do I have a job? Do I not have a job? So Saturn in Pisces can talk about the fear of losing your job. But it's also a very traditional planet too. So some of the other possible manifestation of Saturn in Pisces. How we work with cycles, you're always going to have to go back in the past and you're going to have a look at what happened there because something is going to be similar. Now, whenever Saturn was in the sign of Pisces, there was religious problems. So I did give you a couple of ideas there. We had, where did I put the exact date? I'm so kind of so here are the dates. I don't know why I did that. Sorry about that again, but I'm just gonna kind of change that. So I put down the dates for you. The last time Saturn was in the sign of Pisces, that was 1994, January 28th till 7th of April, 1996. Now, it might have shifted here and there, okay, because it might have retrograded back into Aquarius and so forth. I did not put those down on the slides for you, not to overcomplicate it. But there were so many religious problems. There were things like the priest and the pope are raping children and all these type of things. So it was a huge topic actually around that time. But also, looking at from another point of view, Hitler, 1933, he actually obtained power. And one of his first things he did was that he eradicated the churches. And that happened in 35-ish, exactly when Saturn moved into the sign of Pisces. Then we had 1962, October, we had Vatican II formed, which was the Reformed Vatican Council. Then in 1994, the Church of England ordained their first female priest, which never happened before. So somehow there is always an element of spiritual or religious kind of situation going on. So we should be expecting something like that again coming up. What I'm actually expecting that maybe the Pope is gonna die, and that might be causing a little bit of a religious type of problems. That would be another kind of like prediction I would like to make here. But other stuff, what was going on? Because typically when Saturn is in the sign of Pisces, there is some political changes also coming up. So what was going on, for instance, that in 1905 and 1908, when we had Saturn in the sign of Pisces, actually there was a labor movement going on. And socialist parties were formed in England, France, and the US. So most likely, I can imagine something like a new party is kind of emerging, or an existing one is kind of disappearing completely. Pisces is the very last sign of the zodiac. So in many cases, it talks about letting go of things or finishing up something. So I haven't looked at if there were new parties, maybe in 1994, 1997. If they were, most likely they are going to be finishing that. But also, we had the Bolshevik movement in Russia. And I would like to point out that Saturn Pisces is typically about Russia. Something is going to happen in Russia. So I think Russia will rise to power eventually, by the way. That's what I'm kind of expecting. And also that was around the time when it was the rise of the RAS also. Previously, we had some devastation because of health crisis as well, which was the Black Death. It's possible that, unfortunately, that there is going to be something coming back, or even the COVID is going to get extended, and then the 15th version of it coming, you know, those type of things. But also, Pisces is extremely artistic. And when it was in the sign of Pisces in between 1494 to 96, that was actually the spread of Renaissance. So some type of new movement could be coming around too. But I'm expecting some type of ideological political movements. I made a video recently. I haven't posted it yet, by the way, but I'm going to post it, I think, in a few days' time. I prepared it 4 days ago. About the Prime Minister of England. And I think she is not going to be the Prime Minister for too long. But also, I do know that the elections are coming up in US. I haven't looked at it yet. So even if you want to ask me about it, I haven't checked it yet. But I can also imagine that I don't think, anyway, I don't want to go into politics because you guys are going to hate me for it. But I can imagine a change there too. Okay. Another thing which I really can imagine with Saturn moving into the sign of Pisces, that there is going to be legislation about drug. So obviously it's more and more kind of allowed to, use certain type of drugs. Maybe they're going to be kind of like trying to decrease the amount, but also this would really talk about the increase of drug usage among people. Definitely there is going to be some development in the music, film, and industry, as well as art. And somehow they're going to have to make advancements in shipping as well. Because I think there is going to be some problems around it. So they're going to have to come up with some new ways. Now, I put down other thing as well. As I said, Pisces rules spirituality. And kind of like Saturn in the sign of Pisces, the death of spirituality. So spirituality can go through a transformation in a sense, but it's kind of like always reminding me of the witch hunting. So it doesn't exist anymore, right? But I think us astrologers are going to get haunted by others. Most likely authority figures. I can imagine things like, you're going to have to have a diploma. They're going to introduce, I don't know, astrology at the university because it's a source of money, right? As I said, the shadow side of Pisces is greediness about money. And Saturn is the government. So government wants to make money somehow out of the spiritual beliefs of others. That's a possibility. It's definitely going to be impacting the video game industry. By the way, in 1994, that was the Mortal Kombat video came just right before, I think 92 maybe. And as soon as it came in 94, Saturn went into the sign of Pisces. They regulated it because they believe that it's really kind of hurting the children's psychological response to brutality and so forth. So it could be about protecting children. That's why certain type of drugs or pills or something like that going to kind of vanish, or regulation about, can we use, I don't know, medicinal, opium or whatever, those type of things. Hopefully, because Pisces talks about nature, hopefully there is going to be regulations, or at least kind of like a trial to motivate children to spend more time in nature. Okay. And do we need some type of restrictions on the social media? Yeah, I think we do. I think not only children, but us as well. So I kind of agree with it, but I think they're going to go over. I mean, it's very possible that they're going to go overboard with it. So media regulation is also expected with this Saturn in the sign of Pisces. Another thing which I wanted to quickly mention is that Pisces actually rules oil. So I know that might be a topic for plenty of you, because obviously the oil prices went down. I think it's going to start coming back up. I mean, kind of, they're going to try to normalize it. Okay. Is it going to happen immediately? I don't think so. Or there's going to be a lack of oil, and therefore there's going to be a force to come up with some different ways. But something is going to come which is somehow going to help us with this oil situation also. So I don't think the oil businesses will do the best, by the way. I also looked at what type of films actually we had when we had a Saturn in the sign of Pisces the very last time. Interesting. One of the most successful one of the all time was these two, X-Files and Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Both of them really indicate some mystical things, right? They both of them are about some mystical creatures. So shall we expect similar films and movies? Absolutely. Shall we expect some exposure of maybe different creatures in the world? Absolutely. Maybe we're going to be finding some extinct animals. We thought they were extinct and they are not. Or, this UFO topic or the conspiracy theory is going to be a lot more kind of on our plates. I think also Pisces can represent porn, so something to do with accountability for adult film industry. Most likely regulations about it. Maybe there is no free porn available anymore online and so forth. You have to pay for it and so forth. By the way, also the most likely they're going to raise the minimum age of social media advertisement also. Who can advertise? How old are you? Those type of things. Maybe you're going to have to prove your age as well. Something like that. But there is definitely social media is hugely impacted with this as Saturn moving into the sign of Pisces. Most likely, they're going to try to legalize cannabis a lot more, but political parties will say, no, this is not good. There is going to be a debate about it. Most likely, a very famous musician, pope, or prime minister will die in the next couple of years, which might sound, or which will be very shocking to people also. And also, it's going to be the end of a new, end of a music wave. Last time when actually Saturn went into the sign of Pisces, that was the start of a pop culture. That's when actually people like Whitney Houston really kind of started rising. Actually, that happened in 92 as well with Whitney Houston. That was I Will Always Love You on top of my head. Most likely some new music culture is gonna start, okay? And most likely there will be rules made which no one will understand and they will be very confused about those. Yes, pretty much these are my mundane stuff. Oh no, I've got a couple of more. I think I messed up my slides a little bit and I should have checked it before. So I'm just putting them together here. Sorry about that. Some other further themes I brought up with someone cannot hear me. Can you guys hear me? Well, can you hear me? Yes, you can hear me. Okay, so it's going to be Elena. Okay, so some further themes. Pisces represents oceans. Saturn is natural catastrophes. I did mention that already. It's kind of like floods. But also, very possible that, I don't know, maybe a big ship is going to sink. A little bit of a Titanic syndrome. Okay? It's very possible that the level of the ocean is going to be rising way too much and people will have to escape from their homes. And Pisces rules charitable movements, so it's going to be kind of like at the mercy of others. Water shortages, unfortunately, are also very possible with Saturn in the sign of Pisces. Probably the prices of water will go up. Either the migration is going to get restricted or the mass migration is going to start significantly. I think plenty of kind of like liars and cheaters, because Pisces rules those, as I mentioned, will be exposed. I also put down new virus, new vaccines. I already explained that because the health industry is going to struggle and somehow they're going to need money. Hopefully, I'm not going to get blocked out of YouTube because I'm saying that. And also something around identity issues, most likely. I can imagine situations like in the next 5 years, you can decide whether, I don't know, you're going to be she or he on your passport or these type of things. So something around that. And I already mentioned that I'm expecting some discrimination against minorities. Pisces rules the minorities. So even though it's a vast energy, but it does rule as a little segment of people, unfortunately, there is going to be some discrimination. Maybe those people who is, Miss Victor, because that's what I want to be called from tomorrow onwards. Okay. And also, I can imagine that something in the photograph industry is going to be changing significantly. Maybe it's going to be a new phone, which is, doing these amazing pictures, or actually people are going to be taking no selfies. We're just thinking out loud here. What are some of the possibilities? The beauty of astrology is to think with analogy, okay? So if you've got any ideas of what you might be expecting from this, please let me know. But these are some of the topics which came to my mind. Great. Now, do we have any questions at all so far? If you do, hands up, feel free, and then we can chat. Or do you have any ideas of what we should expect with Saturn in the sign of Pisces? This is my mundane intake. And then after just kind of like a few minutes break, 5 minutes break, I will be talking about on a personal level. And then we're going to start looking at your individual signs also. No questions? Great. Okay, so I will be back in 5 minutes, just 5 minutes break. We can go to the loo. Oh, thank you very much, Jess. See you in 5. Okay, so I'm back, so we can carry on. Max, I joined an hour late, not so sure what you said already. Sorry if you did, but Victor, do you think there will be regulations, restrictions, rules on spiritual businesses when Saturn enters Pisces? Oh, yes, we've already covered that. So there will be a recording available, so you will be able to listen back. The first 1 hour and 15 minutes was about world predictions as well as the characteristics of Saturn and Pisces. Now we're going to be looking at the individual themes, firstly, as in overall. So what I try doing here is that I try to kind of put together some key concepts, well, at least at least 30 points, which you're going to somehow have to fit in your own house as well, because I would be able to talk about each of the house positions for quite a long time, but you're going to have to fit into your own house. At the end, I'm going to break it down to little bits and bobs with the house positions, but not with full length. So one of the first key concepts which I wanted to mention to you is Saturn is about breaking down the barriers in the sign of Pisces. So making a difference between what's real and what's not real. You're going to have to start working on that. Sometimes what it brings is that you have got unrealistic expectations towards others, and you're going to have to realize that, it's not working, especially if it takes place in your 3rd, 7th, or the 11th house, because those are people-connected houses. But also Saturn represents something to do with work. So you can have unrealistic goals or an unrealistic picture of what success means to you, and you're going to have to wake up that things are coming slowly but surely. I am unable to run the marathon without any type of preparation. And that's a huge key success factor to Saturn, which I've talked about at the beginning. So you're going to have to prepare. You must start the preparation now, so that you start seeing progressions or progress when Saturn hits the 24-degree mystery degree, what I was actually talking about, plus the 0 degree of Aries when it is actually coming in 2026. Also, Saturn represents your peers. How are you going to make your own fears disappear? What are you afraid of? Are you afraid of being exposed? Are you afraid of being called a liar or a cheater? And that's why you don't start your dream job. Maybe that's why you don't start your spiritual journey, for instance. But also, Saturn is about mastery, self-mastery. So it's time to master your spiritual side a lot more. You're going to have to be a lot more prepared to a new phase in your lives. The new phase is coming from the fact that Saturn will hit the world axis, which is 0 degree of Aries and 0 degree of Libra in 2026. You're going to have to prepare for that the world is going to turn upside down. And if you have got uncertainties now, it's kind of like not being able to survive from 2026 onwards. So that's very important that you tap into your creative side and you give shape and form to your creativity. Something which might seem one way, but actually it looks completely different. So what is blindfolding you? Okay, knowing that nothing is the way we see it, and we need to accept that. We don't need to put our blind faith into systems or work, or you don't need to kind of think that, oh, you know, I've been working for this company for 35 years. They're never going to get rid of me, because they might shock you tomorrow. So do you have an escape plan? Escapism is Pisces, and Saturn is something to do with a plan and structure. These are some of the very first key points I kind of wanted to come up with for you. The next one is about taking a spiritual road, taking your spiritual growth more seriously. As I said, Pisces is a visionary sign. So if you cannot imagine yourself being successful, how on earth do you expect others to believe in you as well? If someone watches RuPaul, even though sometimes, you know, I'm not too sure if he is the nicest person ever, with, you know, anyway, that's just my opinion. But there is this saying going on. How on earth do you want others to love you if you cannot love yourself, right? Or something like that. And that's exactly Saturn in Pisces motto for me. So how are you going to grow spiritually? Because Saturn is a professor archetype. So it's about studying something very hard and commit to some type of spiritual practices. Maybe you need to be committing to yoga, meditation, whatever it is. You guys know me, I'm not a huge fan of meditation. I think I've echoed that a few times. I just cannot do it. But you know, it doesn't mean it's a bad thing. It's a brilliant thing. I cannot do it. But hopefully you guys find some spiritual practice which you can commit to and you can take seriously. You must have faith in something, whether it's yourself or a higher power. But this combination is about spiritual strength. And how are you going to enhance that for yourself? Also, I did mention before that most likely there is going to be some restrictions around spirituality, or people are going to lose faith in spirituality for some reason. Maybe because we are giving plenty of false predictions. Maybe none of the predictions I'm making actually make sense or are true. Okay? And then you guys might lose your faith in me, or Victor is talking rubbish and all those type of things. But sometimes it does talk about that we are limiting our knowledge to facts, data, and what we see right in front of us. And the truth is sometimes on the other side. Okay? And knowledge is a power. It's an invisible power, but it is a power. So how do you want to enhance your own knowledge about the certain house position wherever Saturn is actually? Especially this is going to be true for those people who have got Saturn going through the 3rd, 6th, 9th, and the 12th house. You're going to have to raise your vibration by knowing more about something. Pisces is about compassionate love, kind of, as I said, unity and understanding that we are all in the same boat, and we're just gonna have to accept that, and we're gonna have to know that. The third one, do you have the tendency to deny what is right in front of you? Do you misread the information? Do you want to believe in something badly, and that leads you to disappointment? Now, Pisces is the sign of disappointment and being misled. Okay, I did speak about Mercury's detrimental position in the sign of Pisces. So the ability to misread information, and Saturn talks about denial. So I gave you that list, or I put down that list with the keywords. All I'm doing is just putting the keywords together. Major question is, because Pisces is about pessimism, so how are you going to make your weakness a strength? How are you going to turn that around? Another huge question with Saturn in Pisces. What are your commitments? Are you trying to run away from your commitments, or are you going to take responsibility for your own life? We tend to do that. It's kind of like awakening your inner authority figure, basically. Knowing that I cannot always count on others. Remember that psychological model I showed you about the persecutor, the rescuer, and the victim. So it is kind of like, how are you going to get out of that rattle which you got stuck in? Also, it could really talk about wanting to commit to a new routine. Now, obviously, we're talking about the Pisces and the Virgo axis, and the Virgo is really about routine. So this could really talk about, for instance, a new fashion coming into the picture, maybe an exercise fashion, and I don't know, group swimming or whatever, something new, okay? But also Pisces is about giving up on something. So what do you have to give up on? What do you have to cut away from your life? And it might be, drugs. It might be medicine. It might be, stuff like that. So something which you need to let go from your own life. Especially true if Saturn is going to go through your 6th house, then you're going to have to practice some new health routines. Pisces is about suffer. So how are you going to eliminate all the suffering from your own life? And one of the ways how it's going to work is when you transform your own belief system. Saturn, which represents the ability to get paralyzed by something. So are you paralyzed? Do you feel like that you're depressed? Unfortunately, depression is also a possibility with Saturn in Pisces. The increased need for psychologists and all those type of things, which might go through a transformation also, by the way. But are you suffering from your own depression? And how are you going to overcome that? And you're going to have an effort for it. Otherwise, it's never going to disappear. But you can be paralyzed by others also. Maybe by your relationship, Saturn in the 7th house. Are you paralyzed so much that you are not going on dates if you are single because you allow your fears to be kind of around, especially those people who were born in the mid-60s, between 65 to 70s, something like that, because they're going to have Saturn and Chiron conjunction going on in their chart. That's going to be an important message for them. Do you feel lost? Did you kind of feel like you lost your mojo? Well, Saturn wants you to get it back. It wants to give shape and form to some of your talents. Maybe it's your visual, artistic talent, internet talent, YouTube talent, whatever it is. But we all have got talents. So it's about the exploration of your talents. It's about embracing that you need to show your true identity. We spoke about the identity issues, right? Pisces kind of represents that. So, but also the law of attraction, I already spoke about that too. And Saturn is that little devil, which is actually whispering into your ear, oh, you cannot do that, otherwise I'm going to take revenge. Think about the mythology, what I was sharing with you in regards to Saturn. Another one is dissolving the government structures and politics. So this could really talk about the loss of a politician or loss of a status of a politician. I kind of spoken about that already, that I kind of feel like the British governor is not gonna be around that long. I think her integrity is gonna get questioned when Saturn moves into the sign of Pisces. But it might be possible others as well. Maybe the European Union's integrity is gonna be questioned quite a lot. But I also can imagine that someone is gonna get sacked. Maybe a politician, or maybe actually King Charles is going to sack the prime minister. Last time when I made a video about King Charles, someone said, oh, he cannot make decisions. That's actually not true. He's got the right to change the government. That's one of his privileges. I can imagine something like that. Maybe not in UK, maybe somewhere else, but something like that I can really imagine. I think also, this is going to be a period of time when the psychology is going to start rising. More and more people will need it. Why is that? Because Saturn in Pisces can make you think that you are crazy. Mental health will be a big topic during these transits. You're going to have to start sorting yourself out mentally. And that was one of the biggest lessons of Saturn in the sign of Pisces. And let's be frank, it got really tested with this COVID situation. It might even get tested more coming up. What are your barriers? Are they psychological, physical, biological? How are you going to remove them? Because Saturn wants to dissolve them all. Saturn is looked at as a bad planet. Well, it just kind of like enhances the bad, okay? But when we do good, it gives plenty of reward as well at the same time. So how you are going to remove the barriers from your life? Who is the barrier? Is that a person? Get rid of them. Do you feel responsible for someone or something bad that has happened before? And maybe that's holding you back. Maybe it's about removing your spiritual boundaries, and you must become your own spiritual essence. Unfortunately, Saturn can represent parents. Some of us might be experiencing a loss of a parent or a grandparent. The parental houses are the 1st, 7th, 4th, and the 10th. But also, the losses of a parent, especially connected to the 5th, 8th, and the 11th house. Also, what are your defense mechanisms? Do you want to even build more, or do you want to actually make them disappear? Do you want to be part of a charitable cause? Do you want to be in service of the underprivileged? Because this is also a topic Saturn talks about. I kind of expect that there is going to be some military service, which might be back in certain countries. Now, I did prepare this material a month or quite a long time ago, actually, because we were meant to be having a Saturn in Pisces, I think 1.5 months ago. And I read it recently that in Russia, it's kind of coming back. I don't think it's just only in Russia. It's going to be some other countries, surely. What are you addicted to? Time to work on it. Pisces rules addictions, drug, alcohol, medicine, or just being addicted to feel pity for yourself. Something that is irrelevant in your life and it needs to be disposed. Why are you just floating around without any aim or purpose? Saturn represents our long-term goals. You're going to have to find the purpose of your life. And that's going to be a huge topic for plenty of you. Panic attacks, most likely going to be a huge topic. I spoke about the mental part of things, so I'm not going to repeat myself on that. Typically, the problem with Saturn in Pisces that we tend to be afraid of making a mistake, or we are afraid of failing or being humiliated by others or being criticized by others. And that's why in many cases, Pisces decides, oh, I'm not doing anything. Kind of like putting my head in the sand is an easier option than kind of like making a mistake. Okay. If you want to be learning more about metaphysics or spirituality and you want to be mastering your skills, then it's high time. Now, I did say it can go to the extremes. Either I think spirituality is going to get restricted in one way. Maybe it's on YouTube, as I said. But at the same time, I think astrology will be accepted on a global level as well. Maybe it's going to get introduced in schools as a subject. Or someone is going to spread more of the spirituality overall. Pisces is a financial sign. By the way, it talks about losses and big expenditures. So some of you, especially those who have got their Saturn going through the 2nd, 5th, 8th, or the 11th house, you're going to have to put a little bit of a break on your financials, or at least thinking about, do I need it or do I not need that? Okay. Remember, Pisces is Venus is the exalted ruler of Pisces. And Venus loves money. So Pisces actually about money also. And Neptune is the higher octave of Venus. So Neptune talks about plenty of money. Hopefully, the rich will be exposed as well. But you're going to have to be calculating with your money. Where do I put it? Because most likely the prices of everything is going to go up significantly. And we don't need to be an astrologer to say that. Okay. Also, do you have the tendency? Oh, and I do believe that something to do with the equal pay or how much people getting paid for certain type of jobs, especially the doctors and the medical fields. And maybe that's the reason why we're going to have shortages of doctors and so forth. Or employees in hospitals, and the private sector is going to be a lot bigger. By the way, Pisces also rules pensioners. And Saturn kind of cuts away the benefits from the pensioners. So that's a very negative way to think about it, but it's a possibility, unfortunately. So anything to do with the underprivileged can be suffering somehow. Do you judge people around you or the ones that are not on the same page with you? Because you're going to have to forgive them and you're going to have to accept their viewpoint as well. You're going to have to learn to trust in yourself, in others, and in spirituality, and having faith in yourself. Most likely the Disability Act will be changing as well, which I think already mentioned, but the last time Saturn went into the sign of Pisces, it got really reinforced. Maybe there is going to be a topic of what's considered disabled and what's not. Maybe, oh, okay, you have got one leg, you can still go and work. You know, this type of mentality. That unfortunately, something like that is a possibility. Or maybe mental health is not going to be considered as a kind of disability, you know, or something, but most likely the Disability Act will change also. You might feel during Saturn in Pisces that you are just a little piece in a big machine, and you don't see how important part you play with your role. You're going to have to already start working on that and feeling confident that you are important, even if you are just a small pedal. If you don't serve something or someone, you will suffer. What does it mean? You're gonna, you walk in the street, you see a underprivileged person, I might give them a piece of bread, because the universe will have your back. And believing in that. Do you have the tendency to pretend something that you are not? Especially if Saturn is going through your 1st house or 7th house. That might be a huge topic for you. Pisces, by the way, rules dreams, as I said before, especially the nightmares. Okay, Sagittarius rules the uplifting dreams, if you didn't know that. And having nightmares, and then these dreams can seem to be very real. And that's why it's hard sometimes to make difference between reality and our dreams. It's kind of like imagining someone said something to us, but actually it wasn't even said. So how are you going to bring your fears onto the surface? Do you try to avoid rejections at all costs? Do you lower your standards somehow because you don't want to confront with others? Do you feel belittled by someone because you're going to have to sack those people? Do you want, maybe the desire of having peace and equality is going to grow significantly, and hopefully there is going to be some movement around that. Are you too pessimistic about something? You're going to have to change on that. If you are too negative, Saturn will try to sort this out for you, but you're going to have to put the work in. Without work, it's not going to happen. So this is my little intake on a personal level. Some of the questions I kind of just wanted to share with you. Do you have any questions so far or any comments? Then hands up. Before we move on to the 12 signs, and then I give you a little bit of a brief overview. No questions. Great. Let's move forward. So, I did put here the Saturn in Pisces, Saturn ingress into Pisces, actually, before we go on to the 12th sign. And I wanted to talk about that a slightly bit. Because what you see is we're going to have quite a heavy Saturn, Piscean energy going on. And we're going to have a full moon happening as well at the same time when Saturn is moving into the sign of Pisces. So that's why and on the world scale, it's going to happen in the 6th house too. So this is some medical indications here. Saturn will be only the dispositor of one planet, which is Pluto, sitting on 29 degree. And that's a critical degree. So most likely some critical times are coming with Saturn in the sign of Pisces. And that's the reason why I had to be a little bit more on the negative side today, unfortunately. The dispositor of Saturn is Jupiter, which is then going to be connecting with Chiron. So it's really much about trying to heal relationships with others, which can go very wrong. And Saturn has got this wide conjunction with Mercury. If we don't say that it's a conjunction, but Mercury is kind of like on the midpoint of Saturn and Sun. On personal level, this could really talk about not knowing who you are. And in order for you to get to know yourself, you're going to have to communicate with others. And this is one of the reasons why I thought mass migration might be happening, because Mercury rules the 9th house here, where Mars is going to be. And Mars has been a retrograde motion in that department. I mean, it's just gone kind of direct on the day, just the previous day. So it's quite slow still. So this is not a healthy looking chart, to be honest, even with the full moon, which is really highlighting some of the medical matters in the world. But let's see how it unfolds. Okay, let's have a look at what Aries rising sign should be expecting. So you're going to have Saturn transiting your 12th house. It's very much, I mean, whatever I mentioned so far, it's going to play a huge role for Aries. So just we're going to be recapping on that. But you're going to have to imagine a better future for yourself. And how are you going to make your future better is depending on the fact whether you want to solidify your plans or not. Stop dreaming about it. Last year was about dreaming. Now it's about taking actions. You're going to have to release your own sufferings. You cannot lick your own wounds anymore. Okay? Are you too focused on your own sufferings? Because it's not going to work. You're going to have to focus on something else. How are you going to make it work? The opposite side is Virgo. You're going to have to make something work in your life. Create a vision board. Or do you have one? Start using it and make the first step so you can reach your own goals. Definitely the 12th house is a self-discovery because a bigger change is coming to your way in 2026. You need to be ready for it. You need to know who you are. Withdrawing yourself completely might not be the solution this time around. But you don't need to be too clingy either to others. Whether you want to be preparing yourself or whether you want to be changing your lifestyle or you want to be changing your appearance, actually it's time to start that. Sometimes it brings in isolation and loneliness. We can, yes, get into hospital as well, or we can get arrested for something. Less and less people will experience those. Most likely, one of the biggest topics for Aries rising is to have a spiritual practice, because practice makes perfect. And it's also about working on something in the background. So maybe in 26, you can launch it with full force. And just before 26, not in 26, before 26, so that in 26, the results can be coming around. Taurus rising sign. So it means that Saturn will be transiting your 11th house. It's about becoming a professor and a teacher somehow. And you're going to have to share something with others. Maybe you decide to have a social media channel. Great. Do not expect it's going to be successful immediately. Okay? You're going to have to test in different ways what works and what doesn't work. I did. I did that. I have got Capricorn on my 11th house, and I know what people, I rarely have relationship readings. One of the reasons is not because I'm not good at it. It's just most likely, I'm not the greatest at it anyway, but that's why I don't do relationship webinars and stuff like that, because it's not my favorite topic. I'm struggling myself with it. I like teaching about profession and money and these type of things, and because I'm really good at it. I've got good business sense, but I also really know the astrological background of that too. But so working on your long-term goals, working on your financial matters with Saturn in the 11th house is going to be important. But something which was working before might not be working anymore. So you're going to have to make certain type of tweaks on it. You're going to have to look at your long-term goals. Are they working for me? Do they serve my needs, or do they not serve my needs anymore? It might be about taking a charge in a group, for instance, or being a part of a group where I can share somehow my experiences with others. It's kind of like an activist type of position, really. But also your fears can be around, oh, I'm afraid of social media. I don't want an online business. That's the future. Saturn in Aquarius was telling you that. Did you actually see that in the world? Of course you did see that, because some of the businesses went online completely, right? And this was just the beginning of that. The future is something to do with online matters. How are you going to achieve that, Taurus rising? Yes, you might lose a friend. Yes, you might lose a friend or a parent as well, unfortunately. But remembering, instead of asking yourself why everyone hates me, it's going to be more about, okay, but I still have got my good friends around me, and the rest was not serving my needs anymore. Sometimes it's just about having that one special friend, which is important. Also, being around people who share the same values or same vision, just like you do. Most likely, Taurus or Gemini rising Saturn will want you to change job. Or it wants you to take responsibility in your job. So it can talk about promotion, a well-deserved promotion, which you might have been working towards for 3 years. Okay, and now it's time actually to get that. Gemini rising, so Saturn will be transiting your 10th house. So it's working extra hard to gain some exposure. That's the main one. Are you stubborn about it, or are you actually going with the flow? Are you going to try something new? Because if it hasn't happened so far, or you just recently started something, let's say, a few months ago, then carry on working hard. But if you've been doing something for many years and then it didn't work out, why do you expect it to be working out now? Okay, so it might want you to start something new. It's about shaping your reputation. So how are you going to get recognized by others? And that's only going to be happening by hard work. Saturn rules cheap things. Sometimes you're going to have to lower our prices, but also it talks about the free of charge things. So do you want to give some free content maybe to others, which actually exposing you even, the free content is more the Pisces, by the way. But Saturn rules the cheap or the very low prices. So giving something for just a couple of penny, but it might bring you thousands of buyers. And then at the end, it works out in a better way for you. Definitely can also indicate for Gemini that you're going to be extremely busy. So you're going to have loads of responsibilities. Maybe you're going to have to look after your parents. Maybe you're going to be overloaded with work. And therefore, it can indicate that you are burning out a little bit, because even though you are very good at juggling between two things, but it somehow becomes too much. Some of you might become a parent. So parenting is possible also. Most likely, you're going to have to look at whether you are proud of achieving, what have you achieved in your life, and can you be proud of that? And what are your dreams and how you can reach them? It might be about opening up a spiritual business, or at least thinking about what would be your ideal job. It's about reputation, the highest version of yourself. So how are you going to shape up? How I want others to see me. Cancer rising, you're going to have Saturn running through your 9th house. Well, it's going to really talk about that faith, what I was talking about previously. How would your future would look like if you had faith? Why do you have lack of confidence? How are you going to build on your confidence? And maybe you should study some spirituality. And that's going to give you confidence, because you're going to get to know yourself more. Pisces 9th house talks about your scripts, your mindset. Why do you have restricted mindsets? Why are you keep saying that this is difficult, I cannot do it? Why are you coming up with all the excuses? Stop making excuses. Take action on something. Do you have got anything to share with the world? It can be a great time, and then you can get your reward. You can become a teacher for someone. You can show the path to others. Maybe you have no clue what the meaning of life is for you, and you're going to have to work hard to find it. Yes, you can get into legal disputes. You can have a spiritual crisis situation. You can have issues with travel. They don't go as planned. These are really the physical things. But because it's Pisces, it's not really about just looking after the physical stuff. even though Saturn is about the materialism, but we're gonna have to merge the materialism and the mysticism. Okay, and that's important to remember for you, Cancer. Leo rising, it's gonna happen in your 8th house. What are your inner demons? Make them vanish. Do you have fears, or do you know that the universe is actually having your back? Can you be honest, or do you feel like you need to be hiding? What are your psychological defenses? You're going to have to release them with that Saturn. And actually, you're going to have to face them. That we all have them. And others are in the same shoe also. Yes, some of you might experience divorce. Yes, some of you might experience a spiritual death. Or maybe you lose someone in your life who was important. Saturn, I would say, if your relationship is struggling now, Leo, then unfortunately it can actually indicate divorce when Saturn moves into the 8th house. But it's not late to start working on the foundation in the relationship. It's about having faith in our partner, but also trusting them, that they don't want to hurt us. They just have got their own psychological defenses also. And we're going to have to come to terms with that. You're going to have to be very honest with yourself. Don't be deluded. Oh, yes, it works. Nothing is going on. You know, all those type of things. Unfortunately, there is something in the background. It's very possible that your partner will be struggling financially, and you're going to have to support them too. Maybe you're going to be more focused on having a life insurance, for instance, or you want to take up a loan. Saturn in the 8th house might not necessarily be a great time to have a mortgage or a loan, because it could indicate difficulties of being able to pay it back. Also, some of you might be afraid of being killed or losing your own life. So you're going to have to realize that, you know what, we are not immortal. I mean, we are not immortal. At one point, we're all going to go. So making peace with death in some forms, it could, I mean, it will happen. Virgo rising, you're going to have Saturn going through your 7th house. It's time to start working on your relationship departments, to go back to basics and have a foundation, a solid foundation. But a foundation can really talk about going with the flow, having a moment, having experiences in our life. It's about trusting your partner, but there is some healing to do in the partnership as well. And you're going to have to take it seriously. If you have been single for a very long time, you're going to have to ask yourself the question, why am I single? Am I afraid? Do I have good expectations which I need to release? Or if you have a relationship, does your partner hold you back somehow? Maybe you have got your professional goals, but the partner is actually not helping you. They are holding you back. Or maybe they want to help too much, and that annoys you. However, that would be an indication that you need to accept help from others. And actually, Saturn in Pisces, I forgot to mention that. It's not just about saying no to others, but accepting help from others as well. And that's going to be quite huge for you, Virgo rising. It's very much about, again, committing to a relationship or getting divorced, or establishing somehow a partnership in your life, business partnership, and so forth. And yes, Virgo, you can also have some legal dispute going on also. What can happen here is that you might have been in a relationship which is not working, and you're trying to hang on to it. Is that really what you want? You might want to be asking yourself the question. Sometimes Saturn in Pisces can talk about, in the 7th house, can talk about relocation too. Also, if you've been working hard to be recognized and cherished by others, actually that's a possibility too. it can bring results here also. Maybe again, you guys are ready to be, a parent. This could talk about becoming a parent. Why? Because Saturn rules your fifth house, which is about children. But definitely the indication there that you're meant to be having fun. You need to let your hair down with your partner. You need to get back into the dating. Taking it more seriously is going to be important. Maybe your child is going to get married. Libra rising sign. So you're going to have Saturn going through your sixth house. Something you're going to have kind of like a daily routine as. Something you're going to have to do on a daily basis. Maybe it's about looking after your parents, Saturn rules your fourth house, but also maybe it's a health regime. Because Pisces is about health as well as the sixth house. Yes, you can have some chronic illnesses. You can have just some depression. Just depression going on. But most likely because you are tired of something. What are you tired of? You need to find the root cause of that, eliminate it, and then you're going to be fine. You're going to start healing. It's really about taking your health seriously on a mental, physical, and biological level also. Yes, it might be that you're going to be very busy in your home environment, cleaning up and doing a spring clean. However, you might be desiring not to have so much responsibility, and you might be craving of having some type of fun overall as well. Maybe you will want to change your work because you are burnt out and you've been doing it for a very long time. And then all of a sudden I realized that's where your fears can switch on. Oh, I'm too old to do that. I don't know anything else. Sixth house is about what I've learned so far. I'm actually testing my knowledge. So Saturn will want to test your knowledge here. Sixth house is a knowledge house also. I'd like just to point that out. Also, it's about not doing everything on your own. How to share responsibilities with others. Libra is about partner. So let's do things together. I wash up the dirty plates today and you do that tomorrow. So that doesn't cause any type of chaos. Scorpio rising, you're going to have that going on in your fifth house. You might want to become a mom or a dad. You might get tired of not expressing yourself the way you want to be expressing yourself. And you want to be expressing yourself without any type of fears. And you're going to have to do that. Maybe you are going to be restricted a little bit in the sexual department. You're not going to feel the need to have kind of like sex in your life, a little bit of a celibacy position, really. But Saturn wants you to have a kind of like quality sex, right? We don't need to have it every day. Let's just have it once a week, but that's going to be blowing our minds. It's also about taking your hobbies and fun a little bit more seriously. You don't need to be working 24/7. I can do sometimes a little bit of a fun for myself so that I can be who I am, really. Watch out for losses through gambling. You can, yes, have some issues with your children, arguments, or they might go through a tough period, a divorce, or stuff like that. They are taking on extra responsibilities, such as they have a child and you're going to have to chip in somehow. That's actually a possibility also. It's about having fun. Make sure with Saturn going through your fifth house, you have fun. Because it's very easy to become depressed with this Saturn in the fifth house also. You must have some type of hobbies. And unfortunately, this could also talk about an end of a romance. You might be going out with someone, but you guys don't live together, and then this relationship is actually ending. It's about celebrating life without any type of fear. That's, I think, the biggest motto of the fifth house with Saturn in there. Unfortunately, this could also talk about a loss of a parent and dealing with properties, selling and buying houses. Also, it might be possible that you're gonna be spending money on things such as renovating the home, as well as renting out your home, and stuff like that. Sagittarius, you're gonna have Saturn going through your fourth house, which is very much about balancing your home life with your work life. And that was true for the 10th house as well, by the way. How much time I spend at work and how much time I spend with my own family. And who is my family? That could be a question. Somehow releasing some ancestral pain, knowing that, you know what, we've been going through the same crap for generations. How to actually end that. It could bring you relocation, the desire to want to move, because you might not feel peaceful where you are. It could also talk about additional responsibilities given by the family, like looking after others. And you might have got a desire to attend their needs, or you might get fed up with it if you have been doing it for a long time. It's a good idea to have a little bit of a spiritual corner in your home so you can practice spirituality there. You might become interested in family karma, for instance, and then you want to be digging a little bit more about that. Or you might have got the tendency that, you know, kind of like the feeling that I want to get out from here because I feel this home environment as a burden. Capricorn rising, you're going to have Saturn going through your third house. Of course, Saturn rules you. So this is going to be an important one for you, which is about working on your communication style. Maybe you're going to be limiting your life from phones and internet and emails, and you're going to be live more impersonal kind of conversations with others or meeting up with people. It's very much about having the right to speak about spiritual matters with others. Hopefully, you find a guru. This could really talk about studying something or taking your studies more seriously. You might actually have got a test coming up. Can be work related, can be, you know, school related, and so forth. And you might even fail it because you were a little bit oblivious to the questions, you didn't read them through and so forth. But that's okay. You might watch out for such things like accidents while you are driving. Be careful. We don't need to rush things. This is kind of a speedy house overall. It's about way of thinking, which might be too pessimistic. It's really time to work on that. It's also about, you know, that your knowledge is getting tested, but it doesn't mean we need to be an eternal student. I can say out loud that, you know what, I don't know the answer, but I'm going to look up. No problem. It also can indicate that your siblings are going to be going through a tough period and they're going to count on you. It might indicate that you're going to actually meet a lost sibling, for instance, you haven't spoken to for a while. That's a possibility. And also, it can talk about you receiving a new neighbor or having issues with the existing one too. Watch out for things such as your car can break down and you're going to have to spend money on that. Saturn also rules your second house, so that's a possibility. Spending money on your vehicles. Two signs left. Aquarius rising. So you're going to have to put a little bit of a break on your financials. How much money I spend, I don't need to go overboard with it. Just a little bit of a break. But at the same time, do I have got any money blockages which I need to dissolve because it's holding me back of making more? Do you do the right work? Am I earning my money in the right way? It's about knowing that you are worthy and you deserve to have certain experiences, teachers, gurus in your life. Spend a little bit of the money if you are kind of like a little bit of a tight bum, on things which is going to lift you up spiritually, physically as well. This could, by the way, talk about wanting to lose weight. So put in a break onto a certain type of food groups, which also possible for Saturn going through in the 6th house as well, by the way. Also, it might be no financial problems, but you can be extremely concerned with your own financials. Sometimes actually it can indicate actually losses financially as well, a loss of a job or starting a new job, but also maybe you have got a very rigid belief system and that needs to go. And last but not least, Pisces rising sign. Well, the 1st house is your body. So you need to restructure your body. Maybe you need to lean down. Maybe you need to build some muscles. But start it now. Don't wait while Saturn is in the 1st house. Start it now because it's going to give you more rewards in the sign of Pisces. How do you portray yourself to others? Are you limiting yourself or do you represent your true identity? Are you a people pleaser or are you going to be standing up for your own truth? Are you stubborn about something? Are you actually not practicing your spiritual power? Or you might want to be actually doing your spiritual power, but you are afraid of it. It's really about showing yourself to others. It's not just about learning to say no to others as well, because it's time to focus on your own needs, not just attending other people's needs. Saturn in the 1st house can bring lethargy, tiredness, sometimes health crisis situations. Usually it's because we take on too much responsibility or we become desperate about something or we become way too focused. Again, the balance is going to be a huge key here. And Pisces co-ruler is Venus, which is the planet of balance. So balancing out the pessimism with the optimism, find the middle road, what I was talking to you about, and so forth. It's a possibility that you might lose a grandparent. We do need to be ready for it. But the key success factor is that you don't need to impress anyone. You need to impress yourself. Well, guys, I got to the end of the presentation of Saturn and Saturn in the sign of Pisces. I hope it's helping you to get your head around it. I try to be, just 2 hours, not to keep you here forever. Yeah, do you have any questions at all? Yes, I like questions. Catalina?
Hello, Victor. Hello, everyone. It was a
Hi.
very nice webinar. Thank you so much for all the information you put together and presented to us. I have a question. So you said to prepare for beforehand for Saturn in Pisces. What about when Saturn is finishing its job in a sign? How can we work with that? I remembered, for example, a piece of information that if we did the work that Saturn wanted from us, we can get like a reward or we can see some results or something like that. Anything that you have like advice to say in this sense?
Well, when Saturn gets to the end of the sign, it's good to do a summary. What have I achieved according to that sign and what have I not? And making a list and then taking it forward. And then, Saturn is about time. It wants us to have a time management, but it allows things to be postponed. Okay. So I would say that, February, we should be spending a little bit of a time of summarizing what have I done. I don't know, let's say Aquarius is in your 10th house. What have I done in my career in an Aquarian way? What haven't I done? And then I'm going to give, a couple of months time limit for myself to catch up so that after definitely I can start working on that Piscean meta.
Mm-hmm.
I hope that makes sense.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Thank you. Would you say that Saturn in Pisces, you can manifest your dreams through hard work, discipline, and the leap of faith? Of course, I did mention that. I think multiple times. It's about crystallizing your dreams. That's why I said, watch out what you were dreaming about during the Neptune-Jupiter conjunction. Give a form and shape to it. Don't just walk away and change your mind. Unless you have been dreaming about it for millions of years. Great. Any other questions at all? No? Thank you very much, everyone. It was a pleasure to spend the last couple of hours with you. I will upload this video. You will be able to listen back to it. If you want the slides, I'm more than happy to send them over. Just drop me an email. Otherwise, I'm not going to really share the slides of these. These are for my personal use, really. Placidus and whole sign. You use whatever house system you use, but it's good to be mixing the two. And I think it might give a little bit of a better understanding of what to expect. But I don't use whole sign in Placidus anymore, or very rarely. I mean, with solar returns, for instance, I use Placidus because in whole sign house system, the shape of the chart breaks if we don't use Placidus. But yeah, anyway, that's another story. Great, thank you, everyone. I hope to see you on my money course, 12 weeks. Loads to share there, and that might change your life too. Thank you, everyone. Take care of yourself. Have a blessed week. Bye-bye. Bye for now.